Hey, this is Isaiah from YourHead software. Today we're going to talk about the Stacks plugin and some of the cool features we're adding to version 5. This year we're focused on workflow, and that means making things even easier for novices and more powerful for experts. This video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of covering a specific feature, we're going to cover a comprehensive set of new keyboard bindings that together make up a workflow that you can use to keep your hands on the keyboard and away from the mouse as much as possible. Now, this is generally aimed at experts who are trying to get that last 10 or 15% of productivity so that they can build pro sites faster. But if you're a novice, you might still pick up some information from this video. But I would recommend trying the Stacks menu video first. It covers a lot of the same topics, and I'm driving with the mouse and going into less technical detail, so it might be a little bit easier to follow. But if you're an expert and you want to get that last 10%, or you're a novice who's just up for a challenge, grab your clickiest mechanical keyboard and let's dive in and see what we can learn. So I'm going to jump over to RapidWeaver and open up my big view. I'm going to pull down the Stacks menu so we can have a look at all the keyboard shortcuts here. I'm not going to go over the details of the Stacks menu, but the keyboard shortcuts that are in the menu are a great reference. And it definitely makes learning all of these different keyboard commands really easy. So the first thing that you might notice about all of these keyboard commands, key bindings, you'll have to excuse me, key bindings, command keys, shortcuts, they all mean about the same thing, but they come from different platforms or different eras of computing, and I kind of use them interchangeably. So whichever one you feel most comfortable with, hopefully I'll mention that one a few times in this video. So all of these keyboard shortcuts use Option as the modifier key. So Option, comma, opens the Stacks preferences, whereas normally Command, comma, opens up the app preferences. And that's kind of a standard Mac OS thing. RapidWeaver, being a very well-behaved Mac app, uses Command, comma to open up its preferences. And so trying to keep away from RapidWeaver's preferences or RapidWeaver's command keys, I use Option, but a lot of the standard other key, so Option, comma, opens up our preferences. There is a second reason. I'm also working on Stacks Pro, an app based on Stacks that should be out by the end of the year. Now, Stacks Pro, of course, is a full app, and so it uses Command, comma, instead of Option, comma. And in fact, if you walk down this list, there's a one-to-one correspondence of the command keys in Stacks Pro to the Option keys in the Stacks plugin. And that way, you can switch back and forth between Stacks Pro and the Stacks plugin, even in the same day. And I can tell you, my muscle memory just kicks in. And so I can switch back and forth without thinking too hard about which keys are where. I just naturally go for the Option key when I'm using the plugin, and naturally go for the Command key when I'm using the app. But all of the other key bindings are about the same. Right, so let's see if we can cover a few basic topics here. We're going to start with selecting stacks. Then we're going to move on to moving stacks. Then we're going to cover editing stacks in a bunch of different ways. And lastly, we're going to take a quick tour at the other places in the Stacks plugin that have brand new key bindings. All right, so let's start with selection. We mentioned this in the Stacks menu video, that you can do select all stacks, and it selects the top level stacks. And this is great if you just want to delete everything and start from scratch. That's Command-Shift-A. Command-A is similar. It selects all stacks within a container. And you can see it in the menu here. Select all within stack. So that's Option A. And there we've selected everything inside that container. It's a really quick way when you have a whole bunch of stacks in a container and you just want to clean them out. Now, if you have something selected and you want to move that selection around, say we have this item selected and we want to move the selection down to this image stack, we can do that pretty easily just by using the arrow keys. There's no modifier key at all. It's just arrow up and arrow down to move the selection. Now, that's been with us since Stacks 1.0, but we've added quite a bit since then too. You can also move up and down the hierarchy, not just vertically. So to move up the hierarchy, to select the container or the parent, use Command up arrow. And to move down a level of hierarchy, use Command down arrow. And that will select the first child inside of that container. And this is great when you want to just move around really quick to a different thing. So here we have the flower selected and we want to get up to the mushroom. It's just a few clicks. And did you notice we scrolled to that selection? I didn't have to use the mouse to see what was selected. The new default behavior of Stacks is to scroll to the place that's selected. Right, we've covered selection. Let's move on to move. So the move commands are all brand new this year, but I'm telling you, it's maybe my favorite feature. They're right here in the Stacks menu, and you can see it's Option arrow or Option Shift arrow to move to top and Option Shift arrow to move to the bottom. So let's give those a shot. I want to move this flower around, and by Option down arrow, it moves down one stack, and Option up arrow moves up one stack. Man, that is just so easy. About 10 minutes after finishing implementing this, it became second nature for me to use this as the only way that I move things around in the layout. I'm just kicking myself for not having implemented this 10 years ago, because it really was that easy, and boy, it's great. It also works with multiple stacks. So if I select two things and then use the movement commands, it's going to first move those things together, collect them, and then from that point, it will perform the action. So in this case, move. So it will gather things at the point of the topmost thing selected. So in this case, that's the mushroom. And then it's going to do the move after that. So let's give it a shot. I have the mushroom and the flower selected. It should move the flower up to the mushroom, gathering it. and then move it one stack up. So that's what happened. And we can keep going. And it just moves both of those along up one stack at a time. And it's really great if you're looking to just put things off to the side for a moment. You can grab a few stacks that you want not to be in the layout right now. So I'm going to pick all these images. And then I'm going to do Option-Shift down arrow. And that will move all of these things to the very bottom of my layout, freeing up space for me to work, but without deleting things permanently. Option-Shift down arrow. So all those things disappeared from here, but now they're at the very bottom of the layout. I'm going to undo to put them right back. All right. So we've covered selection and movement. Now let's head over to editing. Now, there are a few different ways to modify a stack. Obviously, we can open up the info sidebar and change all those things, but I mean more direct editing, like how about hide and lock a stack? So I'm going to select a few stacks because anything that you can do with one stack, you can probably do with a number of stacks. So I'll select a few stacks and then I'll hide them. Now, these commands are here. It's Option H for hide. And you would think it would be Option L for lock, but it can't be, because Option L already shows and hides the library, and that's a really important function. Option I hides and shows the info sidebar, and those have existed for years. So instead of using the first letter for the command, I'm using the last letter. So we did Option H to hide. We'll do Option K to lock. There. Now you see they're all red. And keep in mind, once they're locked, I can no longer use things like the movement commands anymore. So I'll select one and I'll try Option up arrow. Nope, it actually just moved the selection. It doesn't know how to move one of these locked stacks. All right, so we've covered hide, lock, but there's another pretty important editing feature. It's creating partials. And new this year, you can create partials from multiple items scattered throughout the layout. You don't have to bring them together inside of a container like you used to. So I'm going to select this image, the shoes, and this HTML stack. And I'm going to create a partial from all three of these things. And just like we saw with the movement commands, it's first going to gather them together, and it'll do that right underneath the topmost or leftmost stack. Once they're gathered together, it's going to create a partial there. And it's going to push us into the partial, of course. So these commands are right here: create a partial, create an external, and unpack. Option P to create a partial. Let's try it. Option P. We created the partial and we pushed in. We can back out, and now all of those stacks are right underneath the top level, the top stack that we had selected, which was that HTML stack. Now, of course, since we can create a partial with the keyboard now, we also need to be able to unpack it with the keyboard. And that is Option and little arrow. And what that little arrow means is press return. So let's give it a try. So we'll do Option return. And it unpacked those stacks and put them in that spot. So I can undo. We're back into the partial. And then undo again, and it should put these things all back in the place that they came from. Boom. So there's the HTML stack. Here's that image, and here's that image. Right, so now we've successfully done selection, movement, editing, partials. Last but not least, I'd like to take a quick walk through some of the other items in the Stacks menu that allow us to change the interface quickly without using the mouse. So as I demonstrated earlier, we can hide and show the library and hide and show the info sidebar. We can also, focus on the find with Option F, and that lets us do a quick search without ever touching the mouse. Escape to end. Now, there's a few more items in here. Of course, we talked about the preferences. There's page stats. There's a whole video on page stats, and I encourage you to go watch it. Page stats are kind of fun, and it's a really useful tool too. We also have a quick way to check for updates. This not only opens the updates window, it actually clicks the check for updates button too. So it's a one-shot deal. Let's give it a shot. Option U. Oh, I'm still focused on the find. Let's try that again. Option U. So you'll notice there, I was focused in on the find. So some of the option commands, just like command keys, won't really work if you're editing text or some of the other things like modal windows. You have to be cognizant of what you have selected to what your command keys are going to operate on. So I did, Option U. It opened up this window and immediately checked for updates. Looks like I have a foundation update waiting for me. I'll do Command W to close the window. There are a couple other windows that are easy to open and close now. We can get into preferences, of course. That's Option comma. But we can close preferences by doing Command W or even Escape. One of the kind of fun things, this is an old bit of Mac trivia, is that when you have a preferences window open, Escape is one way to close it. But very old Mac keyboards didn't have an escape key. So they had to come up with a solution for everything that required an escape key. And the solution in old Mac OS, even before Mac OS X, was to use Command period. So I can also close the Stacks preferences by doing Command period. It's a weird bit of old Mac trivia. I didn't even have to implement that myself. It's just built into Mac OS. Right, so that's the preferences window. We can also use the keyboard to dismiss a text editing window now. So if you're editing some text and you want to push either the X or the check. Pushing the X is escape, of course. And if you want to push the check, let's make an edit. You can do the enter key or command return if you don't have an enter key on your keyboard. And I think that's a pretty comprehensive list of almost every single one of the command keys that we've added. It covers stack selection, stack movement, stack editing, plus moving around the user interface like hiding and showing the library, and some really quick and easy edits like hide, lock, partials, unpacking. And we now support some of the default macOS command keys like escape to close the preferences and escape and return to close your text editing window. So with all of those things, you can cut down on the number of times you have to go to your mouse significantly. Really, the mouse is now used for a couple places where we use drag and drop all the time, like dropping in a new stack. And multiple selection, I think, is pretty tough doing it just from the keyboard. So there are a few cases like that where it's worth it to go over to the mouse to make those multiple selections. It's a lot more efficient than trying to coax that out of a keyboard. But I encourage you to give all of these things a try and tell me what you think about the command keys. Is anything out of place? Are there things missing that you would like? This year we have a new Discord group. The Discord group is a great place to give us feedback. Discord is a super popular chat service, and we created our Discord group just about 2 weeks ago, and we already have over 250 users. So go look for a link to the Discord server at the bottom of every page of our website and give it a click, sign on. It's free, and there's great clients for Mac and iPhone, or you can just use it via the web. There's a main chat area where you can go ask a question. There's always some experts signed on. Or Discord also has forum topics. So you can go in and post a long-term question there that maybe has more discussion. So if you like forums, it's great. If you like chat, it's also great. Give it a try, send us some feedback, and let me know what you think about this new keyboard workflow. And thanks for listening.